Hello and welcome to Just One More Watch, and welcome to another list video. I love list videos, they're always so much fun to compile, so much fun to make. If you love list videos, perhaps you'd like to subscribe to the channel by hitting the big button with the word subscribe on it. Today it's my top 10 picks if you're looking to buy a Casio watch for less than $50 US. Now I'll leave links to all 10 in the description of the video in the order that I show them. I'll leave links to either Amazon, eBay or Creation Watches in Singapore as appropriate. I bought plenty of watches from all three of those places, so they all come recommended. But of course, use them as your starting point. Find the best deal you can wherever in the world you happen to reside. Alright, let's get on with it and let's start with a few of those aforementioned classics. Watches that just had to be here and represent some of the best value, not just for sub $50 Casios, but the best value you can find in the watch world, full stop. Remarkably, in 2024, $50 still buys you a Casio Juro. It seems the world keeps getting more expensive, but Casio watches just don't. The Juro is a classic. It's a proper dive watch with 200 meters of water resistance, a screw-down crown, a clean, legible and handsome analog display, and fantastic quality control. I have never seen a Juro where the second hand didn't hit every single marker, for example. If you want a no-nonsense analog watch that will tick away happily and accurately on your wrist for decades, have a look at the Duro. There are a bunch of different colours available now with two-tone bezels, etc, etc. The only problem with the Duro is it's big. It's 44mm in diameter with a 52mm lug to lug. I guess that's not a problem if you have a big wrist, and if you do have a wrist that can cope with it, like I said, it's a classic. Talking of which, I cannot speak more highly of the next two watches. If you have never owned either, maybe you should treat yourself to either a square G-Shock or a Casio Royale. Let's start with the Royale then, the AE1200. It gets its nickname because it looks a little bit like a Seiko that Roger Moore wore in a Bond movie that wasn't Casino Royale. Look, never mind, it's great. $20 gets you heaps of specs, most of which are proudly emblazoned across the dial. 100 meters of water resistance, a 10-year battery, 5 alarms, a countdown timer, a stopwatch, world time functionality, with the ability to track most major world cities across every single time zone, all presented in a deliciously geeky case. It has two super strong orange LEDs in each corner that illuminate the whole dial after dark, and so many little bits and pieces on the dial, you can convince yourself that you're a member of Spectre in the 1960s plotting to take over the world from your underwater lair. There are a number of different case colours and strap options available from the factory, plus these can be modified to your taste and budget, adding sapphire and stainless steel if you so choose. Now, this is a bit of a 3-for-1. If you don't like the look of the 1200, why not consider the 1300? It has the same case but drops the world timer in favour of a countdown timer for referees, etc, as does the WS1700 as well. They're all similar watches, they're all great watches. Take your pick. And again, it is remarkable that creeping just into today's budget, you can buy one of the best known and one of the best loved sub-brands in the watch world, G-Shock. And this is one of those rare instances where the bottom of the range might actually be the pick of the range. G-Shocks are rough, tough beater watches favoured by armed forces and first responders around the world. The 5600 series is based on the original G from 1983, and it was launched in 1987, and frankly hasn't changed a lot since then, to be honest. The USP is a heap of shock protection around the digital module, meaning they are really pretty tricky to kill no matter what you do with them. If I'm wearing a G-Shock and people ask me about it, I like taking it off, throwing it across the room and freaking them out. The 5600 has 200 meters of water resistance, alarm, stopwatch, electroluminescent backlight, countdown timer, and that's it. That's all you're getting because that's all you need. They're not ideal for the office, I will be honest, unless your office, of course, is a war zone or an emergency situation. Alright, I said I had done a list similar to this one a number of years ago. Casio, however, have not rested on their laurels since then. They have released a whole bunch of new models and I'm going to include a few starting at number 4 with the LF20W. I think this is one of Casio's most fun recent releases. It's a remake of a classic Casio from the 1980s, and it features a multifunction LCD digital display much like the AE1200. And just like the Royale, you've got an analog display and a digital display with day of the week, date of the month and month of the year all displayed at the same time. Now it isn't a big watch, here it is on my wrist, plus I'll chuck in a couple of comparisons that I pulled off Reddit, but it's not the smallest watch on today's list either. When they were launched they were over budget, they were $65 US equivalent, but I said that I liked it so much that I would buy one myself when the prices dropped. As you can see, the prices have now dropped, so I bought myself one yesterday. Plus, I hear mod kits will soon be available for these ones. Alright, next up at number 5, it's a watch that personally I cannot stand. I think it is as ugly as sin, but I know that there's a lot of love for it elsewhere in the community, so it's on today's list. It's the DW290. As worn by Tom Cruise in Mission Impossible 1 back in 1996. It's a big, lumpy Casio that isn't a G-Shock but features most of the specifications of one, including great water resistance, electroluminescent backlight and all the usual good stuff. Have a look at Creation or on eBay for one of these. Plenty around for just at or under the $50 budget if you are so inclined. It is, however, another 2-for-1 at number 5 because a couple of years ago they actually released an updated version of the 290. No surprises, they called it the 291, but they didn't take the 290 out of production, so you can buy either of them. Similar specs, similar price, just as ugly. I have described both of these watches as carbuncles before. I guess they're just an acquired taste that I never acquired. And once again, it's another 2-for-1 at number 6. Nothing says geek chic quite like a Casio calculator watch. I went to school in the 1980s, and if you had a Casio calculator watch, you were the coolest kid in the playground. I did not have a Casio calculator watch then, but I've got 2 of them now. Personally, I like these DBC32s. Again, like the Royales, they're available in either resin or metal look resin with a metal bracelet, both coming in comfortably under budget. Plus, it's another movie watch worn by Dev Patel's nerdy character in Neil Blomkamp's 2015 Chappie. If that one doesn't take your fancy, what about the CA53 as worn by Walter White in Breaking Bad? These are noticeably smaller than the DBC32s, they feature rubber keys, as was the way of things in the 1980s, and can be bought in a bunch of different colours. A couple of calculators there for you then, take your pick, both of which are pretty much useless for doing actual sums on, just in case that was your plan. Alright, so far we've had a lot of digital and a lot of LCD. Let's bring it back to a traditional three-hander with the MRW200H. This is a plastic fantastic bargain, a super simple, super sensible weekend or holiday style watch, available in so many different bright colours it's ridiculous, but also a few sensible ones if you are so inclined. The watch features a 3-year battery life, 100 meters of water resistance, a day-date complication, a bi-directional friction bezel, big, clear, easy to read numerals, and the best part is it costs $18.02. You can get a watch that will last you for years for the price of a pizza. Don't expect a luxury watch for the price of a pizza though, because they're so light they definitely don't feel luxurious, but they are fantastic. And in yet another 2-for-1, if you prefer your watches absolutely enormous, you can get the similarly styled MRW210 instead for only $5 more. At number 8, it's a watch that frankly I would get lynched if I didn't include on a list like this. It is of course the F91W. This is the quintessential Casio digital watch really. They've been making these since the 1990s in huge volumes, 3 million a year during certain years. Have a look at Amazon USA. This one admittedly enormous retailer has sold over 10,000 of them in the last month, and no wonder. They're $12.85. And for that, you get everything you actually need from a watch. 7 years battery life, a stopwatch, an alarm, a tiny and rather pathetic light, and just about enough water resistance for everyday wear. The only problem with them though is that they are very small by today's standards, as you can see here on my average size wrist. So I'm also going to give you my preferred basic Casio as a bonus option, and that is the W217H. They're only $3 more, and as you can see, not quite as popular, but still ridiculously popular. But it has a much bigger case, has much larger numerals, a much more useful backlight, more water resistance, and is generally going to be a better choice therefore for the majority of people with 6.5-inch wrists and upwards. I'll admit though, it doesn't quite have the pure inverse snobbery, the counterflex of the F91 though. So all Casio watches are quartz. They don't actually make mechanical watches, but as I'm sure you've gathered so far, you can get a ridiculous number of features packed into a $50 quartz watch. Check out how many features you get with this one, the WS1700H. This is perfect for surfers, for fisherfolk or for stargazers because it features both tide graph and moon phase complication. Plus it has an LED backlight, 1/1000th of a second stopwatch, a countdown timer, multifunction alarms, automatic calendar and 100 meters of water resistance. Be warned though, it's a big boy. They claim 48mm in diameter and 15mm thick, putting it on par with some of the mid-sized G-Shocks. There is a huge spread of sizes between something like the F91 and something like this. You are therefore bound to find a size you like in the Casio catalogue, but make sure you check the size before you hit the buy button. And if you thought number 9 was fully featured for under $50, check out number 10, the SGW100-2BCF. It's a twin sensor watch no less, those sensors being a compass and a thermometer. So if you're looking for an affordable, reliable watch to accompany you on orienteering expeditions or hikes into the wilderness or the like, this can be yours for less than $40 US. And of course it has world time, 5 alarms, a backlight, a stopwatch, all the usual good stuff, and far more water resistance than you'll need unless your hike takes you some way underwater. The watch itself is big enough that you can get a good clean read on all of the important information at a glance, and there's always enough available holes on the resin band that you can wrap one of these around the outside of your jacket so you can still see all that information without exposing your skin to the elements. So there you have it, so many Casios, so little time to tell you about them all. This was a top 10, but really it was a top 20. I could have done a top 30, a top 50. There are just so many of these things out there and they keep releasing new ones. But even on this relatively small list, you can see the breadth of their offerings. There are proper dive watches, the toughest beater watches you can get. There's retro geek chic, watches for surfers, watches for hikers, and watches for people who just want a basic time-telling device that won't cost the earth, that will do what they wanted the watch to do for years, if not decades to come. You can't go too far wrong though, so if you find a Casio that you like that's not on this list, you should probably buy it anyway. Chances are it's just as good as all of these. Well done for making it all the way to the end of the video. I have made literally hundreds of videos on Casios now. Why not watch one of these two while you're here? Thanks again for watching this one. I'll see you in the next one.